Welcome to the Mind of Psychic, where we talk music, addiction, comedy, culture. If you like this content, please leave feedback and subscribe. Let's get into it. On this week's episode, I'm going to do a deep dive on depression. Everything from symptoms and ways to cope. Different strategies from the person who deals with it daily. Let's get into it. I've been dealing with depression forever. Never knew really what it was about, the symptoms, until I learned more about it. And when I get flashbacks and think about different scenarios and different situations I was in my past and what the different types of feelings and all of that, I can now, after years of studying, I was finally able to put certain pieces together and learn a routine and figure out myself. One of the first times I remember being depressed and getting depressed in a longer duration was when I was 14 and I moved from Moval to Los Al. I graduated 8th grade and my mom wanted to move me to a better school, be closer to my grandma, etc., etc. When we moved, it was like June of 2000. So I was still 14 and I enrolled at Los Alamitos High. And at that point, it's probably around, I remember like it was yesterday, that we had this huge pull-out couch and I was really having a hard time sleeping in my room. So I was sleeping on the pull-out, not really knowing why at the time, but I would literally just lay in bed in summer. I didn't know anybody, didn't really have anybody to talk to. I mean, I had a computer, so, that whole instant messaging thing, that was huge back then. Did all of that, but I would spend days just laying on the couch, watching TV, thinking none of it. Now, I've always been the type of person that I like my alone time, but this was the first time that I remember as a teenager, the depression and the long duration of how long it took. Like, I was that way for pretty much the whole summer. I wanted to move back, have my old friends. I wanted not to be in this place. And yes, it was nerves, it was anxiety, but moreover, it was just me just feeling sad all the time. So that was, like I mentioned, the first memory of me really having those episodes. Not knowing what that was at that time. When my mom would come home from work, she'd ask me how my day was. I would just shrug it off like, oh, it was okay. I was watching TV. I didn't express my feelings with depression to her. I knew she knew. She did everything she could. Looking back, I know she did. But me at that time, I wanted everybody just to basically leave me the hell alone. And I thought that I could get over this. But by the time school started in September, started meeting people, had homework, went to class, did all of that stuff, I stopped being so depressed. Don't know if because I really didn't have time or it was just, a little time, just one of those just episodes. Not really sure, but I went on, I did what I needed to do, went to school, did my homework, hung out, met friends. So I believe that's what took my mind off of the depression. I met like minded friends that, like myself, are into music, into production, and just like having fun. So there was really only at that time, there was only that 3 or 4 month period that I had that episode. On hanging out with my friends, really didn't think about it too much. Just I was doing what I needed to do as a teenager. It wasn't till I got a little older, and I mean, like, started hanging out with my friends, like, on a consistent basis, that my mood changed, meaning I would go from one high to the other. Um, the manic episodes of me being super happy, then being super sad, me lashing out at my mom, lashing out at my friends. I knew it wasn't something that was normal, but I was too afraid to tell anybody about having those feelings and then having that depression, that episode back when I was 14. And I contribute that a lot. But on this episode, I'm just going to focus on the depression subject and not get into the bipolar part until in later episodes. Now, I know everybody feels sad and hopeless, especially when you're that age and you're not knowing exactly where your life is going. You just feel really at times that there's no hope, especially when you're alone. And I mean, during my teenage years, I wanted to sum that up as I'm just being a teenager. I'm just going through stuff. I did, however, feel nobody else is going through what I'm going through. I didn't want to tell anybody my actual feelings because if I did, I felt that I would be put into a hospital because there was no other alternative. I didn't know about medications. I would have thought that everybody thought that I'd be crazy. So I didn't tell anybody. And for the people that have listened to me from day one, you're going to see a theme about being scared and paranoid about telling my true feelings because I was always so afraid of going to a psych ward. And I lived with that for years and years. And I felt in my own head that I couldn't tell anybody, not even my mom, who was the closest person to me ever. I couldn't tell my grandma. It wasn't embarrassment. It just, part of me didn't want to put a burden on my mom because I know what she was going through with work and trying to provide. And I didn't want to tell my grandma, um, nor my aunt or anybody close to me. But looking back, I could definitely see they had an idea. But the depression thing, like the symptoms that I had, like I could remember, like I said, from years and years ago. And I had everything from like, I either slept too much, didn't sleep enough, I was always tired, or I was too energetic. Um, I either wanted to do everything or nothing. Like there was no middle ground with me. And that was with the depression. So I just lived a life that I thought I could, the best one that I could. And that just goes on and on and on for years. Unwilling to get help, to ask for help. And I know I said that earlier, but I honestly thought that this was something that because I just thought it would go away. You know, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Now it turns out to be something totally different, but I was able to eventually, decades later, figure something out. It's been a struggle for a long, long time. And at that point, it was what it was. Didn't know how to deal with it. Just knew that it just happened. Now, feeling that way and being so scared to tell anybody, to talk about it, I could see how people or would think how people would judge me if I asked for help, even my own family. I didn't want to be a nuisance. I didn't want to bug people. So I just kept living my life. As I mentioned before, the different symptoms, long hibernation, long isolation, long long durations without talking to friends, um, eating a lot, or at times not eating, a lot of different behaviors. And looking back now, it's definitely a case of depression. Now, we all have depression here and there. We all wake up, feeling sorry for ourselves, feeling bad, in just a bad mood, maybe, but it doesn't last long. Most of the time, you're just tired and that's it. Or you've come across somebody's, you're having issues with your family, your friends, maybe a significant other, maybe, there's all of these different environmental factors to make you internally sad and so forth. And what I mean by that is, you can go to a job, you could go to the store, maybe someone pisses you off and you think about it a little bit too much and you get depressed. What could I have done better? What could I have done this? Always thinking. And so I bring that into the depression aspect of it because that was my own experience. Like if someone treated me wrong or said the wrong words, that would also send me into a more of a depressive state. But, when we were that age, there was so much going on internally. I'm sure a lot of us felt this way, just not to the extent. Well, no, no, no. What I mean by that is a lot of people, especially in their teenage years, their brains developing. Well, no, not mine. Mine's never fully developed. So, but no, on a serious note, yes, my brain did fully develop. I'm just joking. But what I mean is a lot of teenagers, if not the majority, we all go through that period of, I don't want to listen to anybody, the rage against the machine type deal. You don't want to listen to your family. You don't want to listen to anybody. Um, you think that everybody are a-holes and you know best. So why I'm bringing that part up is that I believe was a segue in to depression and that nobody is feeling what I'm feeling. And I'm sure a lot of people that age go through that. I was just unaware. And that's all it was. I was worried about myself, my well being on, and it wasn't until my mid 30s that I really started to educate myself. I started learning different coping skills with depression. To me, isolating, isolating to excess. And I did that for years and years where I wouldn't leave my bedroom for weeks, maybe months at a time. There was a point where my depression was so bad that over a course of probably 2.5 months, I maybe left my room twice or three times. And that's not an exaggeration. I would not, definitely not leave the house for weeks, months. I would take an occasional shower, go to the bathroom and that stuff. But other than like trying to socialize and all of that, no, there was none of that. I had my laptop, I had internet. I would just constantly be in my room watching TV with nothing else to motivate myself. I would get a job, keep it until I was bored. Literally, that took about 3 days, and then I would quit. I would do that over and over and over again. I would just become bored, or I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I was blessed that for that period of time, my finances, I didn't have to worry about working. Now, as a 30-year-old, 32-year-old, that's probably not the best mentality to have, but it's what happened. I learned from it, and I will have to work that much harder to recoup all that in later years because of my behaviors. And I'm not blaming anybody but myself for what I was doing. I was an adult. So I would, like I mentioned, I would not leave for weeks on end. And I know it scared a lot of people, the closest people to me, and you know who you are. I get it, because it's abnormal. But to me, it was normal. Like my thinking was, I don't need to socialize. I don't want to talk. I don't want any of that. But a real part of the human nature is to have that friendship, that ability to talk to others, all of that stuff. Now, whether I wanted that or not, I could honestly say talking to people does make me would make me feel better. Like even if it was just going out for a little bit, getting gas or something, saying hi, that would help me. That would make me feel a little bit better, feel more humanistic and not always so down. But from me trying to get to the point of leaving my house to going to get gas, once I got out of the house, I was fine. But getting to that point and having the ability to get myself out and about, even if I would make appointments, unless it was something like I needed to do or I got bored, I would usually not leave the house. And to me, that was normal. To me, it was okay to just stay in my little area for years on end without any thinking. My thought process was just leave me the heck alone and something will eventually happen. Either I'll get out of it, I'll start feeling better, or something will just happen. Now, this is not a healthy way of thinking. And that's why I'm talking about it now because I've done so much research. I've worked with so many people in behavioral health, mental health. I every day is a learning experience and I've been through it. I don't expect anybody to listen to my story. Like I very rarely tell my story to my clients. Like it's not they're there for them. That's it. But the depression aspect of it, it's something so small and minute that you think it is. It could be something huge. And also, one may be diagnosed with something and be misdiagnosed. And that's happened a lot, especially with depression. It's diagnosed one way, then the other, and people go years and years with the wrong misdiagnosis. And that leads to the wrong medications. If you're on medications, all of that type of stuff on depression and everything that entailed. So, what I say to all of this with depression and people that deal with it on an everyday basis for a long duration, please ask, please talk to people. I'm not saying go get meds, go do any of that. What I'm saying is if it happens long enough, usually if it happens every day for more than 2 weeks, that would be considered what they call clinical depression or depression disorder. It all depends, but it will need to be diagnosed by a clinician, a psychiatrist, psychologist, someone who is medically trained and able to diagnose. I mean, everybody's a PhD in Google and WebMD, but I encourage everyone to do as much research on the subject as possible. But with this, always ask a professional, no matter how much knowledge you have. And like I mentioned before, the amount of research you've done, you can't go to a pharmacy and say, I have this, so I need this type of medication, because it's not going to happen. Many might find it to be a waste to go to the doctor because they've done so much background, so much research on their end. They think that they're the clinician, but number one, it doesn't work like that. You need a script, you need a prescription, and that is if medication is involved. I'm in no way saying you should or should not be on medication for depression. I am not a clinician. All I can give you is my opinion, and that's all. I'm not going to say you need this med or that med because I'm not qualified, nor would I try to say that you need this or that. I always think that you should talk to your doctor if you're feeling these sort of ways. And if they feel that you need a medication, that's something you and your doctor will talk about. But to start, I always feel, and this is after years and years of going through this, that I've noticed that starting out with exercise, eating right, getting sun, all the things I've discussed previously in this episode that I have not done. But I have noticed when I do, and I'm proactive, such as working out, eating right, having sun, that I do feel better. Mainly, the depression is not there so much. So take take precautions, get as much information as you can, learn, and talk with your doctor if you feel like that's the step, that approach that you want to take. Go for it. A lot of people don't want to be on medication for this, that, or the other, and it's their right not to be on it. Sometimes it doesn't work for people. There's a stigma with taking medication, especially for depression and mental health disorders, that to this day it's still a stigma. It took me years and years to finally be okay with taking medication myself. I've done it. I haven't done it. I've done it. I haven't done it. And I can tell you, for me personally, and this is me and how my body and everything, my mind works much better with the medication than maybe someone else. But I've talked to multiple doctors about my diagnosis, about my feelings, so on. And that's why I've determined, for me, that was the best avenue. And it's taken years and years of constant understanding, learning, education, and to have the motivation to take to take them as prescribed. Things happen, life happens. Sometimes you miss a dose. Sometimes whatever goes on, you don't get it in your system. Should never double dose. Oh, I forgot this dose. So next dose, I'm just going to double it. Done it before, does not work. Take it as you're supposed to. And if need be, make reminders. That's what I do. I've put myself and I've worked on myself for so long that I have it down to a routine. And I know at what time I need to take it every day, take them every day, because it's that important to me that I do that. And I'm on that regiment and I'm on that schedule and so forth. So, on that note, I want to wish everybody a happy day and hope everybody's week is going well. And this will be a two-parter because it's so long. So look forward to this. The next episode, part 2, it's going to be called Depression Part 2. I know, how creative, right? Just wanted to say again, thank you everyone. And comment, add. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe and leave a comment. You can hear me on all major platforms and socials under the Mind of Psychic podcast. See you next time.